Welcome to the National Council for Hypnotherapy podcast, where we dive into the fascinating world of hypnosis, lifting the lid on hypnotherapy, sharing insights and tips for change as we chat. So sit back, relax, and enjoy all the wonderful possibilities of hypnotherapy. My name is Tracy Grist, and I will be your host today. Hello and welcome. I'm here with Adam Eason, lecturer, author, researcher and organiser of the UKHC, the United Kingdom
Hypnosis
Convention, for all us hypnotists to attend to learn more about the academia behind hypnosis, the entertainment of hypnosis, all sorts of variants that we can bring to the therapy room to give us a rounded way of being as a hypnotherapist. So, Adam, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Great. So, should we just get stuck in?
Roll our sleeves up.
What made you choose the hypnotherapy route? You know, you've done amazing things in your time as a practitioner, as a trainer, as a lecturer, all of these things. Why hypnotherapy? Hypnosis.
I suppose a bit of a troubled teenager, and I had a whole bunch of sort of physical and mental health issues as a late teenager, and I made some very poor decisions with regards to how I was going to help myself be happier in life in general, and I ended up seeing a number of different types of therapists, but it just so happened that hypnosis and hypnotherapy were the things that did it for me. And I remember thinking, wow, this is really cool stuff. I would quite like to learn how to do this. And the kind of things that had failed to sort of grab my attention academically and intellectually at that stage in my life it just meant that I found it very easy to sort of feel driven in a particular direction. I realized that lots of people become involved in the field because they've had some sort of personal journey with it, and it helped me along greatly. And I very much fell in love with it and did it ever since. And I think I have professional memberships dating from 1996 when when I first started studying hypnotherapy in my final year at university.
Yeah. So what were you studying in university then to study hypnotherapy in your final year?
Well, no, I did that in addition to.
I see.
Yeah. So the two were completely unrelated.
Yeah.
I mean, later on in life, working and living running my business in Bournemouth, it just so happened that one of the senior psychology lecturers and research department people at Bournemouth University was really into hypnosis. So it just made it very easy for me to be able to do my PhD at Bournemouth University, which is where I run my business and live my life now. Yeah. So, but my undergraduate days back in those days was nothing to do with it. Yeah. I studied that completely separately. So that when I finished university, I sort of worked in regular jobs for about a year or so. But ultimately, it's pretty much all I've ever done with my adult life has been hypnosis and hypnotherapy.
Love it. Love it. So you, no doubt you've seen a lot. If you had, because I also know that you do physical training, like weight training and
yes,
workout.
Yes, I do. I make no secret about it either. maybe it's a midlife crisis or something like that. But yeah, so I used to be an endurance athlete. And so for years and years, I would run and run and run. And to the point whereby, one of my books was about how to use hypnosis for advancing, and other psychological strategies, in particular cognitive sports psychology, and how that combined with self-hypnosis for running. Yeah. When I got married and had children, I realized that, running 100-mile endurance events across Colorado mountains was probably not sustainable anymore. And the amount of hours that I was doing things like that, it just wasn't sustainable. So I completely changed tack and started lifting weights.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the research that I'd been thoroughly interested in with using self-hypnosis in an active, alert fashion whilst running and whilst training and so on, it's very different, because with weight training and with some of the sort of strength and conditioning types of events that I compete in today, you need to be able to alter your perception of effort, to be able to regulate yourself in a number of different ways, and mobilize strength and explosive energy and things like that. So the reason that I share my weight training and my gym gains on Instagram and so on is simply because I like to illustrate how much and how important and instrumental mindset is when seeking to do things like mobilizing your effort and altering your perception of effort and so on. So, I kind of hit my late 30s, early 40s and made a real big difference. And, building muscle and, altering your body from one where, I was a runner with twiglets for limbs, and suddenly I was seeking to affect that and change that and so on throughout my 40s up until, I'm now hitting my 50s. And so it's been really interesting as far as that's concerned. And I lecture on that as well. And we talk about those kind of applications, and lots of my research, my more recent research within self-hypnosis has been, as well as looking at, cognitive functioning and how self-hypnosis can impact that. We're also looking at, its ability to literally increase one's strength.
Okay, so apart from the fact that I've got a mental image of your limbs covered in Marmite, which I'm going to... So what is self-hypnosis? Because hypnosis for some people is quite scary. So self-hypnosis might even be scarier. So how would you describe what self-hypnosis is and how we can use it for us? How can I use it to stop going to the fridge?
So I had, we had a narrative review published at the end of last year in a peer-reviewed academic journal. And one of the things that we make a really important point of that is that when you talk about and when you understand the very, very important role of self within all hypnosis in general, it can help allay some of that nervousness and some of that apprehension that a lot of people have that gets promoted through media misrepresentation, and unfortunately through a lot of frontline hypnotherapists in my experience. So ultimately, what we start out by saying always is that self-hypnosis is something that is self-directed, so wholly self-directed, self-regulated. That is, the entire thing is regulated by oneself. The suggestions are self-generated too. So if we look at that initial criteria, really simple, open criteria, obviously listening to audios doesn't fit that criteria, because with audios are ultimately hetero-hypnosis, one-to-one hypnosis, just with a hypnotist not present. So you're still following other people's guidance.
Like on YouTube, or like when you buy those recordings on...
Yeah. You're not self-regulating and you're not self-directing it. Ultimately, your entire hypnotic experience is being created and generated by another party. So we've argued in both the meta-analysis that we published a few years ago and the more recent narrative review that was recently published, I'm saying that, self-hypnosis audios really are more akin to hetero-hypnosis than actually self-hypnosis by its official definition. And so for us, we refer to it more as being a cognitive skill rather than an altered state of consciousness or something like that. And because self-hypnosis itself, doesn't sit well with a lot of with a number of very classic theories of hypnosis. So there's a very prominent theory of hetero-hypnosis, for example, that's still taught, and a lot of clinicians still explain it to their patients in these terms, whereby, what hypnosis is doing is inhibiting the prefrontal lobes of the brain and handing over executive control to the hypnotist, or it's put in slightly even more rudimentary terms with the notion of the conscious subconscious mind, where we're stepping over the conscious mind to access the subconscious mind. Now, if that were the case, then how is self-hypnosis even possible? If you are dissociating and inhibiting your prefrontal lobes and your prefrontal cortex, then how can you possibly be in control of and manage and orchestrate a self-hypnosis experience? So phenomenologically, the hetero-hypnosis and self-hypnosis differentiate, because self-hypnosis, you have to put more effort in, and it feels less involuntary. So the effectiveness, that they're easily as effective as each other. So when the two have been compared in research, that they are as effective as each other in a wide number of applications. On rare occasions, hetero-hypnosis is perhaps more suitable to self, and other occasions, self-hypnosis is more suitable and preferred, and therefore more efficacious than hetero-hypnosis.
Does that depend on extroversion, introversion, personality types?
So sometimes personality can help dictate someone's starting point. But if we think of self-hypnosis as a cognitive skill, so, the adoption of seemingly ordinary psychological factors that, when they combine within a good self-hypnosis protocol, raise suggestibility hugely within individuals. So sometimes when people first start out, their personality and trait-based attributes can contribute to their ability. But as with many skills, and with the vast majority of skills in life, as you practice them, you can become great at them. You can become better at them. Some people might find it a lot easier to reach higher levels of aptitude with it. Some people might feel, more talented with it, so to speak. But that's, it probably ends, the relationship with personality probably ends fairly soon once people start practicing.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what would you do? So if I'm a layman, how would I learn self-hypnosis? What would you recommend?
Well, the protocol that we use at Bournemouth University, for example, in the psychology labs at Bournemouth University, is something that we've made readily available. You can go and download a PDF of that self-hypnosis roadmap from my college website for free. If you would just Google Adam Eason self-hypnosis roadmap, it'll come up. Or I can give a link for people just to go and grab that wherever this publication is. Mm-hmm. So, but ultimately, if you think of it in terms of adopting a very particular kind of mindset, so a mindset in terms of, having a certain degree of really healthy expectation, expecting outcomes to happen, expecting the things that you suggest to yourself to happen automatically as well. As John Kilstrom once said, turning a doing into a happening. So you imagine that the things are happening, and then you imagine that you aren't imagining them, so to speak. You imagine that they're happening by themselves. We engage our imagination, that we adopt the role of hypnotized subject, which, as you know, means that you have to turn your eyes into those kind of swirly spiral things. And then, exactly. And then once you've got swirly eyeballs, it's all downhill from there.
Yeah. Can you text yourself that emoji with the swirly eyeballs?
Yeah. But I think, you corral your attention, and you fix your attention in similar ways that hetero-hypnosis is done. Some of the earliest accounts of self-hypnosis that we can find are from James Braid, who essentially oversaw some of his own illness and engaged in self-hypnosis in exactly the same way that he would do heterohypnosis, except, treated himself as operator and receiver at the same time. And, in essence, that is kind of what we're doing. One of the things that our research showed very interestingly is, a lot of people learn self-hypnosis in the clinical environment. So they're taught self-hypnosis by a clinician, by a hypnotherapist. And one of the things that research shows, or quite compelling evidence shows, that if you have hypnosis, heterohypnosis first, and then practice self-hypnosis, your self-hypnosis skills are likely to be impaired compared to if you learned self-hypnosis first and then did heterohypnosis, under which case both hetero and self you will be better at. And the main reason for this is that a lot of people, when they experience heterohypnosis and they don't have to do anything, and they have these kind of wonderful, wonderful experiences, ultimately they try and recreate that, and they try and dip into the memory instead of creating a wholly self-regulated, self-directed experience.
Yeah.
And adapting and developing a cognitive skill. Instead, what tends to happen is they're trying to borrow a memory of their heterohypnosis experience that they had with the clinician. And that's going to be very, very hard to recreate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, the evidence tends to suggest that if you learn that first, so, a really useful tip that I give lots of my trainee and graduate hypnotherapists is to teach their clients, their patients, self-hypnosis as part of them becoming a client, as part of them becoming a patient. So, I give them a document. I ask them to practice certain self-hypnosis skills prior to coming and seeing me. And what that means is that they're already built some skill that can be applied and will have an additive effect to this heterohypnosis that I'm then doing with them in the clinical environment.
They're a bit like a muscular warm-up almost.
Absolutely like that.
Yeah.
But even if they find it difficult, and even if they're not sure how to gauge it, the fact that they practice that skill set, that psychological skill set, has a great deal of utility when they then start having heterohypnosis within the clinical environment.
Yeah, because you're thinking in a different way, isn't it? I think when I see clients, I think it's really important that clients do personality tests to get an idea of who they are and how they can step forward. And I think anything that empowers the client without having to pay the therapist, great.
Yeah, right.
Well, we're all about the empowerment, and a bit about the business.
Yeah.
So in terms of the self-hypnosis changing the cognitive thinking ability, or changing, and how about with neurodiversity? Is that the same? Is there any variations? Is this a neurotypical thing? Am I asking a random question?
Yeah, I mean, with neurodiversity and hypnosis, as far as self-hypnosis is concerned, the same sort of considerations that you apply in life in general just get applied here. So if, for example, you're struggling to concentrate, if, for example, you're struggling to have a self-concept, if, for example, whatever it may be, will just needs to be to be sort of tweaked within the approach. But the great thing about self-hypnosis as opposed to heterohypnosis in that regard is that it's in their hands. Self-hypnosis is pretty malleable, really, and most people can understand that the hypnotic mindset, the cognitive set, if you like, that's required to put together in order to be more receptive, and most people can understand the corralling of attention and focus in order to instigate and induce the beginning of the process. And if they can't, then it's probably hypnosis is unlikely to be the thing for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
As with anything, that's not exclusive to neurodiversity. If somebody is struggling to comprehend the process or it's beyond them for whatever reason, then, an alternative approach is likely to be better.
Yeah, and I think certainly when talking with clients, it isn't a one size fits all to me, hypnotherapy. You
No.
either want it or are open to it, but some people don't like it, don't want it, aren't open to it. And it's, yeah, working well, what can I find something else that suits me?
Yeah, yeah. Well, absolutely. It's not a panacea, and the evidence alone will show us that. There are certain applications of hypnosis that are very, very well indicated for the clinical environment, and certain applications that are perhaps less so. And we probably ought to be considering those things, but also the kind of people we are and the kind of person that we're working with. I think that's one of the reasons why I sometimes feel that it's a challenge if a hypnotherapist is offering a singular model, a singular perspective, and is immovable as far as that's concerned. I think it's really important to be taught not just a singular model that was created by one person, instead to be teaching a range of approaches and to have been subjected to critique on all of those. Nothing is without flaws. My own favored theoretical position for self-hypnosis and hetero-hypnosis are not flawless. They're not without their critique. And so I think it's really important for the hypnotherapy field in general to know and understand both sides of a debate, a technique, a philosophy, an argument, and be able to argue both sides and know what the critique is about the position that they are adopting. So understanding our own cognitive biases, understanding, heuristics and thinking patterns. And, so when we're in supervision, when we're engaging in reflective practice, recognizing, well, how am I making these therapeutic decisions? Yeah. And I think as far as the field of hypnotherapy is concerned, it makes a lot of sense, therefore, not just to have one singular approach and one singular style necessarily, and instead to be able to have enough flexibility to offer what's going to help that individual clinically and optimally.
Yeah, I think that's where it's important as hypnotherapists, partly why we're advocates of the NCH and good practice for that ongoing CPD, supervision, all of those pre-requirements that we have and expectations we have of hypnotherapists, that they are looking to expand their knowledge and their remit. Certainly the face of hypnotherapy has changed with research and looking into what hypnosis is, and it isn't a one-hit wonder or a cure. And
precisely. Yeah. Precisely. And one of the things, funny enough, I was speaking on another podcast quite recently, just saying that one of my bugbears within the field, and I'm sorry to start griping, is that, a lot of people think of hypnosis and hypnotherapy as, all they will need is a single session. And there was this proliferation of hypnosis techniques for single session smoking cessation, for example, in the 90s and the early noughties. Yet really compelling, rather strong evidence tends to suggest that more sessions are better, more sessions, and that a multi-componential approach to hypnotherapy for smoking cessation is far better. So to rather than single stop smoking sessions. And I think, hypnotherapists that are aware of and informed by the evidence and the research typically, tend to frown at this notion of yeehaw, whoopee-doo, single session, do everything as fast as we can. I think it's unrealistic. The areas where we have some of the best, most compelling, heavily scrutinized research are things like irritable bowel syndrome, and pain, where a series of sessions have been proven to impact the condition for over a period of time far better in long-term follow-ups than one-off hits.
Well, and it's certainly, from my position as a woman, and I know that throughout the 4 weeks of the month, my hormones change, and maybe
Yeah, right.
one of those weeks, I might be batshit crazy. But
Yeah.
but I know because of my hormones change, if I was in therapy once a week over those 4 weeks, I will present as a different person. Over that period, if you have a one-hit wonder when your estrogen's fabulous and your progesterone's fabulous, that one-hit wonder is great for that moment. But when those hormones dip and change, does the hypnosis bend and flex to hold that? Does it help me in my PMT days when the world comes to an end? And so I do think if we've got a one session wonder, we're not meeting all the parts. And perhaps men change throughout the month cyclically as well. But certainly from my position as a woman in that viewpoint, a one session wonder, I'm a little bit ready.
Quite right. I mean, the human condition and the very nature of life is such that, it's a roller coaster ride, and, a good quality, robust treatment plan ought to be, covering, a lot of those facets. And, one of the things that I love about people self-monitoring, whether it's, their eating habits or whether it's the levels of pain that they're experiencing, or measuring the quality of life that they have, or whatever it is, that, if they've had a bad morning, for example, or if they've had an argument, or they had an incident at work, which is going to flavor their mindset when they arrive for the session, or they've got some hormonal things going on. And that has affected how they are in that session. At least when we've self-monitored, we can look back over the course of the week and say, well, actually, aside from how you are feeling right now, which is coloring the account that you're giving me, we've got some really strong evidence over the course of the last week that you've been making some great progress, and that there's many reasons to feel positive and optimistic at the moment. And I think you just can't do that if you're doing one-off singular sessions. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. Totally agree. So in terms of where you want to go as a practitioner, as somebody doing all of these things, going from Twiglet to rock beefcake, that you can't sit down and close your legs.
Yeah.
So what do you want in the future? How do you see yourself moving into the future with hypnosis?
Well, one of the things that I'm seeking to do with the research, and one of the things that I'm a fellow researcher and myself, Dr. Ben Paris at Bournemouth University, and myself, one of the things we're seeking to do with self-hypnosis is to attempt to give it a PR job, the likes of which something like mindfulness has, where it's very well accepted. And the good thing about self-hypnosis is that it ought to be able to disconnect and segregate itself from notions of being animated and controlled by a second party. That's one of the things. So I'm keen to do that. One of the other things I'm seeking, I'm keen to do, and to keep exploring, is continuing to have a look at hypnosis as an adjunct, in an adjunctive capacity, what it continues to do. So some of my favorite applications at the moment also include acceptance and commitment therapy, so ACT approaches. I love lots of the pace and the ethos and the sort of underpinning culture of the ACT approach, and I think they make beautiful bedfellows with hypnosis. In fact, I have ongoing contact with Michael Yapko, for example. Michael Yapko is going to be at the convention in 2025, and he talks about something similar, and he wrote a book about the integration of mindfulness and hypnosis, for example, in an adjunctive capacity. So I think sometimes the limitations of hypnosis are that, it's in a lot of research, ultimately what's being researched is hypnosis plus suggestion. Hypnosis plus suggestion is what's being researched, when actually, if you look at full-blown treatment plans of hypnosis in conjunction with other modalities of therapy as well, its scope is huge. Its scope is massive, and it has the chance. I mean, there is research already that shows hypnosis advances the efficacy of CBT, for example, and it has the capacity to be able to do that for a wide range of other things. And so, for me, those are some avenues that I'm currently exploring. It's worth bearing in mind that I've been exploring a wide range of different avenues for 29 years or so within this field. So that's kind of where I'm at currently.
Brilliant. It's fascinating listening to you. If you could give a top tip to anyone listening about maybe looking for a hypnotherapist or wanting to change the way their mindset works, what would you say? Okay,
so I'd be inclined to get in contact with a hypnotherapist beforehand. And for me, I would want, if I was sending a loved one to a hypnotherapist, I'd want them to be evidence-based and research informed, but also I would want my loved one to feel comfortable with that person. And, so being aware of their manner, the kind of person that they are and so on is going to be important. So I think, you will have certain criteria for the kind of person that you like to work with. Maybe you prefer, a male therapist or a female therapist and so on. Let your criteria be addressed. And second of all, I think having someone that is research informed and not just sort of rehashing and revamping, kind of myths and misconceptions within their work, I think would be really important. So someone who's quite clearly professional, ethical, someone who adheres to a code of ethics and professionalism purported by the NCH, for example, I think is really important. I think as far as such organizations are concerned in the UK, the NCH leads by a real distance as far as that's concerned. So, looking at the NCH suggested therapists.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, it's been wonderful talking to you, and I'm very excited to see what's coming in the future. I'm looking forward to the hypnosis convention. If there are any hypnotists listening or hypnotherapists listening that would like to come along, that's in November, isn't it? And we'll add your links to that as well. So, and
if I've sort of piqued anybody's interest in any of these kind of topics, I know sometimes people start thinking, oh, hang on, I could use self-hypnosis in the gym, or I could use this there, or I could do this. Then I'm very accessible. I'm yet to move into my ivory tower. So, you can message me and I'll very happily respond and answer to any questions that you may have.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Adam.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Talking to you. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.